Hi everyone, welcome back once again to my educational channel on biology. So in this video we'll discuss Melaka 2025 paper 2 essay questions. So in the previous video we discussed the structured questions, which are question 1 to question 8. So now we go on to the essay questions from question 9 to question 11. Alright, so there's a mixture of form 4 and form 5 topics here. Alright, for example, question 9 is on genetic engineering, a very important question and very good questions are provided here, okay, with good explanations. Then question 10 is on reproduction, which is a form 4 topic, and then question 11 is on another important topic in the form 5 syllabus, which is environmental sustainability. So all these topics can be asked in the SPM exam. All right, so it pays to go through them, and I'm going to give you some tips to help you score, okay, important tips on how you can answer the question. All right, so do have a look at this video and learn something from it. Now, success is the sum of small efforts, not just one big effort, but small efforts daily, all right, that are repeated day in, day out. For example, the small effort of looking at 1 or 2 questions from here and then jotting down the points, all right, and learning the answering techniques, all right. So day in, day out, when you have all these small efforts, make all these small efforts, finally it will accumulate to become a very big effort, okay, to help you succeed in your exams, all right, and to score in your exams, right? So consistent effort, day in, day out, is important, all right, and not just one big final revision one day before the exam. So here's analysis of what has come up in the SPM. Now, 2021 and 2022, okay, the topic of genetic technology has been asked. So this is the topic that we are going to discuss in the next question for the Melaka trial paper. All right, that is question number 9, an essay question. Now let's look at the analysis here. So in 2021, what came out was genetic engineering. It's an essay question, and the steps to produce the genetically modified bacteria to digest oysters. For the question, you have to look at the SPM past year question book. All right, you have to get it. If you have not tried it, get the book and try the question. All right, all the past year questions. Now, in 2022, genetic engineering was asked again. So notice that it's the following year. The question repeated, but a different topic. Okay, BT corn and how the oil spill is treated using bacteria. So similar to the year 2021 in a way. So questions that have come out the year before can still come out in the year after. All right, doesn't mean that if it's come out in, let's say, 2024, it won't come out in 2025. In fact, they do repeat some questions from what I see. All right, not everyone. They put in some new questions and they do repeat certain topics that have been asked before. It's like a way to test whether you have been trying all the past year questions. So get the book and try the questions and see the standard of the questions so that you're prepared and get used to that. So let's dive into the question in the Melaka paper 2 essay section on genetic technology. Something new here about the salmon and the eggplant. Okay, let's look at the question. So let's discuss the first essay question, question 9, which tests the contents of form 5 chapter 13 on genetic engineering. Okay, let's read the question. Diagram 9.1 below here shows a genetically modified salmon and normal salmon below here, right? So the Chinook salmon growth genes were inserted into the Atlantic salmon genome. Genome means the set of genes, right, to produce the genetically modified salmon, as seen here. So from one type of salmon, okay, the gene is cut out and then is put into another type of salmon. Somehow this causes the salmon to grow very fast. Okay, so at 18 months, this salmon is 61 cm in length and the weight is 3 kg. But let's look at the other salmon here. This is a normal salmon. Okay, now the information is here. At age 18 months, like this salmon, its length is only 33 cm compared to 61 cm here for the genetically modified salmon. And the weight is only 1.3 kg, okay, for this small one compared to 3 kg for the big one. for the genetically modified salmon. Okay. Now, first question is, define genetically modified organism, 2 marks. So all your definition must come from the textbook, okay, the KSSM textbook, the Malaysian textbook. So if you get some answers from the internet, or from other sources like maybe the revision books, if the definition for the GMO is different, then it may be difficult to get the keywords, the same keywords in, and then you may lose marks for that. Okay, so try and recall the definition from your textbook. All right, let's look at the answer. Okay, now from the textbook. First point, a genetically modified organism, or GMO, is an organism such as animal, plant, or microorganism. Okay, so this is the main point, animal, plant, or microorganism. Second point is produced by recombinant DNA technology. This is what's mentioned in the textbook. So first mark for animal, plant, or microorganism. Second mark, recombinant DNA technology. Now, for the sake of revision, let's recall what is recombinant DNA technology. Okay, so recombinant DNA technology is a process of combining DNA from usually 2 different species, all right, to create new artificial DNA, which we call the recombinant DNA, that has recombined. Okay, so from 2 different species. So there are 4 steps here. First, they use the restriction enzymes, which are used to cut out the DNA fragment from the organism A. Okay, from the chromosomes of organism A, of the DNA of organism A. Now they want to transfer this DNA, put it into a vector like a plasmid. So this vector is not not from the new organism. Okay, it may be just a strand of plasmid, which is a circular DNA that is used to carry this DNA fragment from organism A. Okay, so the plasmid is actually from the bacteria. So they use it, they cut out a section of the plasmid and put in the DNA fragment, okay, that they want to use, the target gene. So then they use DNA ligase to join together the plasmid and the DNA fragment, the foreign gene. Okay, next, the recombinant DNA is produced by inserting into a host cell like bacteria, which can divide very quickly. So it will be replicated. The DNA will be replicated when the bacteria divides. Okay, and maybe the bacteria can be used to produce the desired protein. For example, if it has the gene for production of insulin, it will produce insulin. All right. But sometimes the bacteria can be used to insert a foreign gene into chromosomes of plant cells. So the bacteria has the plasmid, and somehow it can be mixed with the growing plant cells, and it can go into the plant cells and then insert the foreign gene, okay, from the first organism into the chromosomes of plant cells. Okay, but we don't need to know the process. So going on, we are going to discuss the benefits of genetically modified salmon. Again, this is a hot question. It's not in your textbook, but textbook does give some general benefits of genetically modified food. Okay, maybe you can look into that. Anyway, for the benefits, let's look at the tips here. Very useful tips. When you talk about benefits or advantages of something, you can state the benefit from certain aspects. For example, in this case, the benefit is to the fish itself, like faster growth, and then to the farmer, because there's more yield produced in that period of time, a fixed period of time, so farmer will have more profits, right? And then to the consumer in terms of the nutritional value of the fish, all right? So if you talk about these many different benefits, it's enough to get you the 5 marks, right? And second point about benefits or advantages, use the comparison mode, like higher, faster, reduce. All right, now we have a look at the answers, and then I will explain more. Now, the first point about the benefits of the genetically modified salmon. The genetically modified fish or salmon shows faster growth, not just fast growth. Okay, now what are you comparing with? The normal salmon, right? So the genetically modified salmon shows faster growth compared to the normal salmon. Okay, right here, compared to the normal salmon. Okay, not just shows fast growth. Okay, that's not a benefit. Faster growth. Secondly, it can be produced throughout the year, unlike the wild salmon that they breed only in during certain season, right? So this fish that is farmed, okay, in the sea by the farmer, it can be produced throughout the year, and it produces higher yields of fish meat due to faster growth rate. All right, because it grows very fast. So let's say at 3 months, the size is already double or triple that of the normal fish. So there's more fish meat there. It's a bigger fish, and the farmer can sell it at a higher price. All right. Next, it reduces the quantity of fish feed required for fish to reach market size. Maybe the small normal salmon may need 6 months to reach market size. So the farmer has to feed it a lot of fish food for 6 months. But for the genetically modified salmon, it grows very fast. So within 3 months, it's already maybe marketable. All right. So it will reduce the quantity of fish feed required, okay, for the fish to reach the market size. Thus, in that way, it reduces the production cost of producing the fish, right? And you can put there, it will give higher profits to the farmer. Okay, it will bring higher profits to the farm. Now, another point for the fish, other than faster growth, it has higher resistance to diseases because it's bigger and also maybe a stronger type of fish. All right, so higher resistance to diseases, so the farmer may not suffer losses, or the risk is less, okay, of it having disease and spreading to other salmon. Now, what's the benefit to the consumer? This salmon is the source of nutrients such as proteins, omega-3 fatty acids, and vitamin D for good health. Okay, so just name even one nutrient is enough to get that 1 point. Okay, so use the comparison mode and state the benefit from fish, from the aspect of fish, farmer, and consumer. Right, let's look at this interesting question B, all right? Diagram 9.2 shows two different conditions for eggplants grown commercially by the farmer. All right, so this is a real situation, and this type of eggplant that's shown here that can resist the attack of pests has really been produced in the world today. All right, it's called the BT eggplant. So let's look at the first condition. In the first condition, normal eggplants here are shown from the cultivation of the natural eggplant seeds. So eggplant is the terong, or English it's also known as brinjals, okay, the purple brinjal plants. So you can see that these normal eggplants, they are easily attacked by the larvae of insect pests. So it will spoil the crop, okay, and then the yield of the farmers will be lower, right? So they suffer great loss if the larvae of the insect pests keep attacking these brinjals. Now, look at the second type. The diagram shows the BT eggplants from cultivation of genetically modified organism, GMO, seeds, all right? So this is a real and true development in the world of agriculture today, all right? There are such a thing as the BT eggplants, all right? So what are BT eggplants? So BT eggplants, they are genetically modified. They have a gene from a soil bacteria called Bacillus thuringiensis, all right? And this gene from the soil bacteria, it is for the production of a toxin that can kill the insect pest, right? So that gene is put into the brinjal, just as for the case of corn or maize. You also have BT maize or corn plants, which has the same gene, the gene for the production of BT toxin, right? Now, once the plant has this gene, it will produce the toxin naturally or automatically. And if any insect pests like this larvae were to attack the plant or the fruits, they will die because their digestive system will be damaged, okay, by the toxin. All right. So in this way, the plant resists the insect pests, and that's why it can grow so well, right? It has a special gene from bacteria in it. Now, the farmer has applied the technique of producing BT eggplant seeds using a type of soil bacteria. So this soil bacteria is actually the Bacillus thuringiensis, correct? Normally, the technique is developed by the researcher, not the farmer, okay? I mean, unless the farmer is a scientist himself, all right? Okay, next, describe the technique to produce the BT eggplant seeds, okay? So, what is the technique used to produce the BT eggplant seeds? Similar to the one for BT corn. All right, so you just need to apply your knowledge, just change from corn to eggplant. All right, so this is a hot question, and it's 3 marks. So let's look at the answer. Now, P1, point number 1, recombinant DNA technology is used. Just now we did mention about recombinant DNA technology, okay, used in production of the salmon, right? The big size salmon, okay, which is genetically modified. So same thing here. Now, just a brief note here about recombinant DNA technology, summary. Recombinant DNA technology involves the insertion of a gene from an organism of one species, that means species A, into the DNA of another species, such as species B. So that means the recombinant DNA technology involves the transferring of the gene from one species and into the DNA of another species. All right. So the two species involved in our case here is the bacteria and the eggplant. Okay. So the gene involved is the gene for production of Bt toxin. Okay. So P1, recombinant DNA technology is used, and the general term for it is it's used in the genetic engineering to produce this Bt eggplant. Now, number 2, the gene for production of Bt toxin from the bacteria Bacillus thuringiensis, Bt, okay, B for Bacillus, T for thuringiensis. So the gene for production of Bt toxin from this bacteria, Bacillus thuringiensis, is inserted into the eggplant genome, okay, into the set of genes in the eggplant, in the chromosomes, or into the eggplant DNA, okay. So it will produce new combination of genes in the plant, and the plant will be called a genetically modified organism, all right, because it has a foreign gene from the bacteria, the gene for production of Bt toxin. So the eggplant will produce the toxin that then kills the insect pest, and the eggplant has a higher resistance to the insect pest. Now, how do the seeds come about? So the eggplant that is genetically modified can be bred among themselves. Okay, that means fertilization can be carried out between the eggplants that are genetically modified. All right, and they produce seeds that still contain this gene for the production of Bt toxin. Okay, this is a real situation that happened, and so these seeds can then be grown, and it's found that they still have the gene. The plants still have the gene for the production of Bt toxin, and they are have higher resistance to the insect pests. So any 3 points here, you get 3 marks. Now, discuss the advantages of using Bt eggplant seeds. So again, this is a hot question, not discussed in our syllabus or in our textbook. Now, so you use your logical thinking. For hot questions, you have to use your logical thinking. And as I said, try to discuss the advantages and ask yourself, what are the advantages from the aspect of the farmer, okay, from the aspect of the eggplant itself, then the farmer, okay, so, and the consumer if possible. Right, let's have a look at the answer. Try the question first. Now, Bt eggplant produces the Bt toxin that kills the insect pest, right? So this is already 2 marks. This is towards the plant, the benefit towards the plant. And then to the farmer, because of this fact, it reduces the use of chemical pesticides, which are quite toxic. So it will reduce air pollution. Some chemical pesticides are sprayed on the plant, and it can also reduce water pollution, because some of these chemical pesticides, when they can go into the soil, and then they can dissolve and then flow into the rivers. Okay, the solution, the rainwater containing the pesticides can flow into the river, so river will be full of pesticides, right? So it reduces water and air pollution, because there's less use of chemical pesticides, since the plant itself can kill the insect pest on its own, okay, using the Bt toxin. So when less chemical pesticides are used, this will help the farmer to save on the cost of pesticides. You don't need to buy the pesticides to spray on the eggplant. So they will not be exposed to the pesticides also, which is also good for their health. Okay, and the eggplants, Bt eggplants is found to produce higher yields than normal eggplants, because they are not so easily attacked by the insect pests, since the insect pests die. And also, that means we say that they produce higher yields than normal eggplants, as they have higher resistance to insect pests. Okay, so you can write down, as they have higher resistance to insect pests, right? Now let's get question C. The diagram 9.3a here on the left and 9.3b shows graphs for two different types of variation. Okay, so you look at 9.3a, you can see the separate bars, right, like in the bar chart. And this is the discrete distribution. So what type of variation is this? Discontinuous variation, all right? Whereas for the diagram 9.3b, you can see that the graph is made up of a lot of bars that are attached together. This forms the histogram, and the shape of the curve here is a curve with the normal distribution, So it's called the normal distribution curve, where the two extremes have very few individuals, okay, having the characteristics, and the individuals with the characteristic with the most individuals is right in the center here, okay, the middle part of the graph. So that's the graph for normal distribution. So compare and contrast the type of variation in diagram 9.3a and 9.3b, all right? So compare and contrast means you must have both similarities and differences. At least one similarity, and the rest can be differences. Okay, or at least one difference and the rest can be similarities. Normally the differences are more, okay, but not all the time. Now let's look at the similarities. So try to give as many similarities as possible, and then the difference. Now it's 7 marks, and so you must have in total 7 points. Okay, each similarity or each difference is 1 mark. Now begin the words both. Don't write answers that are not complete. Okay, write answers that are complete. That means with complete sentences. Both show differences in characteristics among individuals of the same species, because both are variation, and this is the definition for variation: differences in characteristics among individuals of the same species. So you can use the definition to give one similarity. All right. Generally, both are types of variation, so there are differences in characteristics among individuals of the same species. And secondly, both are used to identify or differentiate between individuals within a population. For example, among humans, we can differentiate individuals based on their blood groups or the height, okay, whether they are tall or moderate in height or short, and the ability to roll the tongue, right? So both can be used to identify or differentiate between individuals within a population, okay? Now let's go on to the differences. So again, please write complete sentences, right? Don't just write discontinuous variation for diagram 9.3a. See, since they don't mention any name for these two graphs, you have to write in the title here, diagram 9.3a and diagram 9.3b, right? So begin with the words, the graph shows discontinuous variation for A, and then for B, the graph shows continuous variation, right? Then next, difference, go to the characteristics for discontinuous variation and continuous variation. This is all in the textbook. So there are obvious and distinct differences in characteristics. Like for example, the first one may be able to roll the tongue, the other one unable to roll the tongue. Very obvious and distinct differences. Now for B, okay, this graph here, B, there are no obvious differences in characteristics, all right, because there are many intermediates. So thirdly, of course, if you compare the height of a very short person and a very tall person, there's an obvious difference. But if you go from uh, one class or one group of heights to the other gradually, then you may not be able to see the obvious difference, because two people may have, let's say, the height of 1.6 and then 1.61. So they're quite close in height. Okay. Now D3, no intermediate characteristics. So you can write there are no intermediate characteristics. Okay, for these two, for this type of characteristics. But for graph B, there's the presence of intermediate characteristics, like from this height to this height. So the height can have a lot of intermediate values, right? Next, the graph shows discrete distribution or discrete bars in this case, all right? Discrete bars, separated bars. Discrete means separate. Now, for B, 9.3b, the graph shows a normal distribution curve, okay? Normal distribution curve. So here are already 4 different. Right, continue with the differences. of discontinuous variation in graph A, and a continuous variation for graph B. All right. So for this continuous variation, graph A, the characteristic is controlled by one single gene, okay, like the gene for blood group, all right, or the gene for ability to roll the tongue. One single gene means usually there are two alleles involved. For example, ability to roll the tongue. There's one dominant allele for able to roll the tongue, and then the other allele is for not able to roll the tongue. That's the recessive allele. Okay, so few genes are involved. Okay, one single gene usually. Now, for continuous variation, graph B, the characteristic is controlled by many genes. That means many pairs of alleles, and usually on different chromosomes. One example is height for humans. The height for humans is controlled by a few, believed to be controlled by a few pairs of alleles or few genes found on different chromosomes. Okay, that's unlike the pea plant. Pea plant for height, they have only one recessive allele and one dominant allele is involved. Okay, but this is for humans. Now, next, discontinuous variation. It is not influenced by environmental factors, only influenced by the genetic factor. For example, blood group, okay, is influenced by the genes or the alleles, which is IA, IB, and IO. Three alleles involved. That's a bit different. But for continuous variation, it is influenced by environmental factors, such as the height of a person, okay, when he reaches adulthood. It is influenced by what nutrition, what are the nutrients eaten. If a person doesn't get enough nutrients, then he will not reach his maximum height. Okay, he may be stunted in growth. Okay, so continuous variation. For continuous variation, the characteristic is influenced by environmental factors. So write complete sentences when you are writing your, giving your comparison or differences in a table. Now the next question is from Form 4, Chapter 15 on reproduction. So the last time reproduction topic came out was in 2021. That's quite a long time ago, right? And it's a structured question related to these topics. The comparison between fetal vein blood, that means the blood in the fetal vein, and the blood in the maternal artery. Okay, and then what's the function of the semi-vesicle, you have to know in order to answer the question. And then something on in vitro fertilization and artificial insemination. So this question was quite tough for the students. All right. Now, so in our Melaka paper, we are going to discuss a different topic, but still it's a subtopic in this topic of reproduction. All right, dealing with comparison between the formation of sperm, spermatogenesis, and formation of ovum, oogenesis. So that is a possible topic for this coming exam. Okay, so let's dive into that question and try to answer them. Okay, question 10, right? Diagram 10.1 here shows two cells involved in human reproduction process, right? So the two cells, what are they? Cell A is a sperm, right? And cell B is a secondary oocyte, which after meiosis 2 will produce the ovum, all right? But it's not yet an ovum, it's a secondary oocyte. How do we know? Because there's one polar body here and one big cell here, so it's just finished the stage of meiosis 1. Okay, from one cell, two cells are produced. Okay, one is the polar body here, and one is the bigger secondary oocyte. Now, explain the structure for both cells. Now, they didn't ask you to compare, so don't draw a table and compare the two cells. In this case, it's explain the structure of both cells. 3 marks only, all right? So we can talk, now when you want to explain, you can talk about the structure, the function of the structures, and so forth, okay? So let's have a look at the answer. For cell A is a sperm, right? So a sperm bracket, now you must write first, the cell A is a sperm. Okay, write down cell A is a sperm. So a sperm has 3 main parts: head, midpiece, and tail. Okay, head, midpiece, and tail. Then talk about the structures, right? So the head, the content of the structures. The head contains a nucleus, which contains the genetic material, right? To determine the characteristics of the future generation. Then the mid piece, what's so special about it? It is packed with mitochondria, okay, P3. And then what's the use of the mitochondria? To generate energy for the sperm to swim towards the ovum in the fallopian tube for fertilization, okay? And then it has a tail. What is the function of the tail? So the tail is a long tail. It has a long tail that can move from side to side to help the sperm to swim towards the ovum. This is not mentioned here, okay? You can write it has a long tail to swim towards the ovum or secondary oocyte for fertilization in the fallopian tube. All right. Now next, how about B? So cell B is the secondary oocyte. All right. It is a large cell that is spherical or round in shape, surrounded by a gel-like substance and also follicular cells. These are all the follicular cells that supply it with nutrients and protects it. Okay, you can mention that follicular cells supplies nutrients and protects the secondary oocyte. And then the nucleus is located in the center of the ova or secondary oocyte, which is enclosed by cytoplasm. Now the next question is about comparison between spermatogenesis and oogenesis. So I just quickly revise with you this process because it's a bit more complicated, but it's very easy. Okay, so just imagine first I'll start with the primordial germ cell for both oogenesis and spermatogenesis. Now for spermatogenesis, the primordial germ cells undergo mitosis to increase the number of the cells. So the daughter cells are called spermatogonium, which are still diploid, right? Then each spermatogonium undergoes development and enlarges in size to form the primary spermatocyte, which is still diploid. But once the primary spermatocyte undergoes meiosis 1, it becomes haploid already. And the result is the secondary spermatocyte. So there are two secondary spermatocytes formed from one primary spermatocyte. All right. So imagine, just remember primary school. After that, from primary school, you go to secondary school, right? So primary spermatocyte, secondary spermatocyte. And lastly, through meiosis 2, the spermatids are formed, which are still haploid. Next, through differentiation, the spermatids will start to have a change in structure to form the head, neck, and tail, and become the spermatozoa or spermatozoon, okay, or sperms. Now, for oogenesis, the process starts out the same with the primordial germ cell, and then through mitosis, a lot of new cells, daughter cells are formed. These are called the oogonium, which are diploid. And then when the oogonium undergoes growth and development, it forms the primary oocyte, which is still diploid, and now it's ready to undergo meiosis 1 to form the secondary oocyte. But for the formation of secondary oocyte, one cell is the big cell called the secondary oocyte, and there's one with less cytoplasm. It's called the polar body. So the polar body is non-functional. Okay. Now at this stage, the secondary oocyte process is the process of cell division or meiosis 2. It doesn't straight away undergo meiosis 2. Okay. Whereas for the sperm, meiosis 1 and 2 occurs continuously until the formation of the spermatids and the spermatozoa. Okay. But for oogenesis, there is the secondary oocyte is formed, and then after that, ovulation occurs where the secondary oocyte is released into the fallopian tube. If there's no fertilization, then the ovum is not formed. But if there's fertilization by the sperm, then the ovum will undergo meiosis 2. Okay, the secondary oocyte will undergo meiosis 2 to form the ovum. And then the polar bodies, they undergo meiosis 2 also, but they will produce, in the end, 3 polar bodies will be produced. Okay, 2 from this polar body and 1 from this secondary oocyte. All right, so now since this topic of gametogenesis has not been asked before, let's just continue to recap or recall what this process is. And here I have another way to help you to remember the 2 processes, all right, which have many steps. So for spermatogenesis, okay, this is a repeat of what was in the flowchart, but it is in the form of a horizontal flowchart here. Primordial germ cells, through mitosis, produce spermatogonium. So if many spermatogonia, but let's just look at one spermatogonium, it undergoes development to form a primary spermatocyte. All these are diploid cells. Then the primary spermatocyte undergoes meiosis 1 to form 2 secondary spermatocytes. They are already haploid. And then through meiosis 2, 4 spermatids are produced that are round cells. So they differentiate to form the head, neck and the tail. Okay, head, middle part, and then the tail. So these are called the sperms. Okay, that's the formation of sperms or spermatozoa. Now, in oogenesis or formation of the ovum, again start with the primordial germ cells. They undergo mitosis to form oogonia. So one oogonium that's diploid will undergo development. That means it will enlarge and grow. You form the primary oocyte. Now, each primary oocyte that is diploid undergoes meiosis 1 to form one secondary oocyte, which is haploid, and one polar body, right? So only one functional cell here, which is the secondary oocyte. So after meiosis 2, the secondary oocyte will produce an ovum plus one polar body, and this polar body here will also undergo meiosis 2 to produce two more polar bodies. Okay, so the final outcome from one primary oocyte is one ovum and three polar bodies, whereas the final outcome from one spermatocyte is four sperms. Okay, with the differentiation process occurring to form the four sperms. Question 2. Compare and contrast the production processes for both cells. So compare and contrast means you must have at least one similarity and one difference, right? So try and write more similarities and more differences. Okay, each similarity or each difference is 1 mark, but write more, all right? Write a few more in case some may be not exactly correct, right? So let's have a look at the similarities. So all these questions on similarities and differences are very important for you to memorize, okay? So for the first one is the production of cell A, right? And that we have to identify involves the process of what? Spermatogenesis, because the sperm is formed, okay? And production of cell B is a secondary oocyte, so it involves oogenesis, which is the production of the ovum. So with that, let's begin with the similarities. So both processes, the production of the sperm and the production of the ovum, take place in reproductive organs, such as the testes and ovary. So generally, they take place in the reproductive organs. 1 mark. Secondly, both processes, that means spermatogenesis and oogenesis, begin with the primordial germ cells, which are the initial cells at the beginning, right? That divide by mitosis to form many spermatogonium or oogonium. So the primordial germ cells, they start with the primordial germ cells for both processes. And then third one, both processes, spermatogenesis and oogenesis, produce haploid gametes. That means the sperm and the ovum. Now, both processes involve mitosis, okay, which occurs at the earlier stage, and then both processes involve meiosis too. So in process of mitosis, the number of the cells will increase, right? And through the process of meiosis, the diploid number is reduced to half, to a haploid number of chromosomes. Now let's look at the differences. So for production of cell A, spermatogenesis process occurs or is involved, and for production of cell B, oogenesis occurs, right? Then the process occurs in the testes. So you have to add the word it. It occurs in the testes. Form complete sentences. Whereas for cell B, it occurs in the ovary. All right. So these are all talking about the differences between spermatogenesis and oogenesis, actually. And then the third one, spermatogonium produces 4 functional sperms after meiosis from one spermatogonium. Okay. From one oogonium, only one functional secondary oocyte is produced, and the 3 others are non-functioning polar bodies. Okay, let's continue with the differences. So point number 4, the structure of the sperms. Sperms are smaller and made up of the midpiece, head, and tail. Okay, so made up of the head, the midpiece, and then the tail. Now, secondary oocytes are much larger, and they are spherical or round in shape, like this. Next, after meiosis 1, 2 secondary spermatocytes are produced from one primary spermatocyte. But in oogenesis, after meiosis 1, one primary oocyte is formed and also one polar body, okay, which is different, which has a smaller amount of cytoplasm. And this polar body is non-functional, okay? So it just produces one secondary oocyte. Now, next, Point number 6. In spermatogenesis, meiosis is completed in a continuous process without stopping. All right. But in oogenesis, meiosis 2 is only completed when the sperm fertilizes a secondary oocyte that is in the fallopian tube, right? Then the meiosis 2 is completed to form the ovum. Okay. Now, spermatogenesis. In spermatogenesis, spermatids undergo differentiation to become sperms. But for secondary oocytes, they don't undergo any differentiation at all. And even when after they form the ovum, they don't undergo differentiation anymore. Okay? Now, production of sperm is continuous from puberty until old age. Okay, so that can be from about 12 or 14 years until old age means 70, okay, even 70 plus, right? Now, the production of secondary oocyte, on the other hand, for oogenesis, is not continuous. It starts in the female fetus and then it stops at the primary oocyte stage, primary oocyte, okay, before meiosis 1. Then it remains dormant when the baby is born. So baby is born with a lot of these primary oocytes enclosed in the follicle cells. The process continues once the female reaches puberty and stops during menopause. So when the female or a girl reaches puberty at around 12 years of age, the process continues, whereby the primary oocytes undergo meiosis 1 to form the secondary oocytes. Okay? And then only if there's fertilization, then the ovum will be formed. Now, but then this process of producing the secondary oocyte stops during menopause at around 50 years of age. And from then on, the woman doesn't produce any more secondary oocytes. Okay? Right. Now, number 9. Millions of sperms are formed every day, but that's for spermatogenesis. And in oogenesis, only one secondary oocyte is released from the ovaries at every menstrual cycle. All right, one secondary oocyte is released from the ovaries at every menstrual cycle every month. So very few oocytes, secondary oocytes are released. Okay, but for sperms, a lot of them are released every day, are formed every day. Okay, let's look at this new question which has not been asked in SPM before. Okay, so be prepared to face this question in the exam because it's quite popular, was quite popular also in the old syllabus. All right. Now, diagram 10.2 shows changes in hormone concentrations in the blood during one menstrual cycle. Okay, hormone concentrations. So 4 hormones are involved: FSH, estrogen, LH, and progesterone. Now, this graph shows you the relative concentration of the hormones in the blood against the days in the menstrual cycle. Okay, from day 0 to day 28. Now, the question is, explain how the changes in hormonal level of the hormones secreted during the menstrual cycle control the follicle development in the ovaries and the changes in the thickness of the endometrial wall. So notice what I've underlined. Changes in the hormonal level of the hormones. Okay, all these changes, how the hormones increase and decrease, all right? And how they are related to, how they control the follicle development. Follicle is the structure or the tissue in the ovaries which enclose the secondary oocyte, the primary oocyte and secondary oocyte, okay, during the development of the ovum, right, or the secondary oocyte. So, and then that is one part, all right, the ovary, and the other part is the changes in the thickness of the endometrial wall or the endometrium, which is the lining of the uterus. So that is in the uterus, right? Now, so actually what they are asking you to do is to talk about the changes in these 4 hormones. That means you have to discuss the functions of these 4 hormones because they are related to each other, right? And it must be in this order. Start with FSH, followed by estrogen, then LH and progesterone. Okay, so FOLP, FOLP, not flop, FOLP. The acronym is Fish on Lucy's Pot. Okay, Fish on Lucy's Pot. So you must discuss in this order, okay, to give a systematic explanation. And the tip here also is that 2 hormones from the pituitary gland are involved in the follicle development. And then two hormones, okay, from the follicle cells are involved in the thickening and the repair of the endometrium. Okay, so FSH and LH, these two hormones secreted by the pituitary gland, are involved in controlling the development of follicles. Whereas estrogen and progesterone, they're involved in regulating and stimulating the endometrial wall to thicken. All right, so let's write down the answer. Now start with the follicle stimulating hormone in the graph here. So pituitary gland release the follicle stimulating hormone FSH and LH into the blood at first, all right, at about day 1 or 2. Okay, now then the function, straight away state the function of FSH. It stimulates the development of the follicle in the ovary, like its name, okay, follicle stimulating hormone. So it stimulates development of follicle in the ovary, okay, 1 mark. And then talk about the process that occurs in the ovary. The primary oocyte develops and it will undergo meiosis 1 to form the secondary oocyte. Okay, you can write undergoes meiosis 1 to form secondary oocyte. Then the growing follicles will release the second hormone, which is estrogen. All right, so estrogen is released from the ovary, from the follicles in the ovary. Now, function of estrogen, another mark. Estrogen stimulates follicle maturation and the repair of the endometrial wall. Okay, estrogen stimulates follicle maturation. That means the follicle continue to grow bigger and bigger in the ovary, and it also stimulates the repair of the endometrial wall. Use the term endometrial wall as mentioned here. Okay, endometrial wall repair or repair of endometrial wall. That means endometrial wall will start to thicken again after menstruation had occurred. Okay, so that's the function of estrogen. So we have talked about the function of FSH, and actually there are two functions for FSH. Stimulate development of follicle and also stimulate the growing follicles to release estrogen. Then for estrogen, there are also two functions: stimulates follicle maturation and the repair of the endometrial wall. Okay. Now another effect of estrogen is at low levels of estrogen inhibit the release of FSH and LH to prevent further growth of new follicles. Because already one follicle is developing and the rest are prevented from developing. All right. So that only one secondary oocyte is released every month into the fallopian tube. All right. So that's inhibition by the low levels of estrogen. Next, estrogen level rises, stimulating the pituitary gland to secrete more FSH and LH. This is another effect, okay, of estrogen, which is to stimulate. Firstly, it inhibits, but later on, as it rises, it will stimulate the pituitary gland to secrete more FSH and LH. As you can see here, the level of FSH and LH increases and peaks at around day 14. Now, FSH is the dotted line here. This one, the lower one, and LH is the higher one. Okay, so that's the reason for this, right? Now, next, the LH level rises and it stimulates ovulation to occur. Okay, so LH level must rise. Then the event that occurs is that the secondary oocyte is released from the grafting follicle, which is a big follicle, right? Then that is the function of LH, to stimulate ovulation. Next, LH stimulates the follicular tissue left behind to form the corpus luteum. So it stimulates the leftovers or the remains of the grafting follicle to form a structure called the corpus luteum. That is the function, second function of LH. Every hormone has two functions, right? Next, LH will stimulate the release of estrogen and progesterone. So corpus luteum, stimulated by LH, then secretes the estrogen and progesterone, two hormones. And the combination of estrogen and progesterone inhibits the release of FSH and LH again to stop the growth of new follicles, because already one follicle is developing. Okay. Now, function of progesterone. So you can remember this P11, at least remember P12. Progesterone stimulates the thickening of the endometrial wall like estrogen and make it rich with blood vessels, right? So both estrogen and progesterone stimulates the thickening of the endometrial wall. Now, P13, if fertilization does not take place, the LH levels will decrease, all right? And the corpus luteum will degenerate. When the corpus luteum degenerates, it does not secrete the estrogen and progesterone anymore. So the level of progesterone will drop and the level of estrogen will also drop here. Right? So the endometrial wall will then break down because of the low levels of estrogen and progesterone. And the endometrial wall will be shed during menstruation. Okay? That's the end of the cycle. So together, any 7 marks will give you the 7 points will give you the 7 marks. So it's not that difficult to obtain the marks. Next, part 2, diagram 10.3 shows a type of hormone that has a similar role as the luteinizing hormone. So take note of this. This is a hint to you. A type of hormone that has a similar role to the luteinizing hormone. So recall back the luteinizing hormone or LH. What is its role? Its role is to stimulate the release of the secondary oocyte from the follicle, Graafian follicle, and that's called ovulation. Okay, luteinizing hormone stimulates ovulation, right? And the development of the corpus luteum after that. So now let's look at the question. A woman cannot get pregnant due to failure in ovulation. Okay, failure to release the secondary oocyte into the fallopian tube during ovulation. All right. So the doctor gave the woman a hormone injection as shown in diagram 10.3 so that the woman became pregnant after the hormone treatment. All right. So this is a hot question because we have not studied the function of HCG. It's a type of substance, all right, that stimulates, it's a hormone that stimulates ovulation as mentioned here. All right. Same role as LH. Now, based on the above statement, explain how the injections of the hormone enable the process of pregnancy. So you have to treat it like it is the same as LH hormone, okay? That it has the same function. So first point, HCG hormone stimulates ovulation, just like LH, based on the hint here for you, okay? And it's true that it helps to trigger or stimulate ovulation, okay? As you'll see in the notes here. Now, P2, secondary oocyte is released from Graafian follicle. This is ovulation, right? Into the fallopian tube after the injection of HCG. So ovulation occurs. P3, now the ovum will undergo fertilization, okay, with the sperm in the fallopian tube to produce the zygote. So this is the process of fertilization because the ovum or secondary oocyte has been released into the fallopian tube. All right? And then after that, you can mention also the other function where the HCG causes the Graafian follicle, that is the remains of the Graafian follicle, to develop into the corpus luteum. All right? This is another function. So 4 marks in all. That means it's just testing on the functions of luteinizing hormone, which is similar to the functions of HCG. Now, this is the notes. Okay, these are the notes concerning HCG from another source, because it's not mentioned in the textbook, right? So this is a hot question. Now, and a HCG injection is used to trigger what? Ovulation. Okay, just like what is mentioned here at the top here. That's a similar function. It has a similar function to LH. In women undergoing fertility treatments like IVF, as we mentioned there. Okay, IVF is the in vitro fertilization process where the woman has to produce a lot of these secondary oocytes, and the secondary oocytes are taken out and fertilized in outside the body, okay, in the petri dish or test tube. So, or to induce final maturation of eggs. Okay, never mind about that. In men, it can stimulate sperm production. So remember that also on HCG also stimulates sperm production in men, and the injection mimics the natural LH hormone, as mentioned in the question. Okay, so this is a hot question where you apply the functions of LH to the question, right? To answer the question. Finally, for the question 11 in the Melaka state trial paper, the topic involved is environmental sustainability. All right, and in the SPM, it came out as question 11 in 2021. That's already long time ago, right? About 4 years. So the topic that came out was about deforestation, the chopping down of trees in the forest, clearing of land, global warming, eutrophication, green building. What is a green building? Okay, with all the different aspects like glass, doors, and all that. For what purpose? And then green technology. How is green technology involved? Okay, in schools. How do schools practice green technology and how it benefits the environment? So in this next question from the Melaka State paper, we are going to discuss green technology again, green building again. Now questions can repeat and can repeat in other parts of the paper too, like in the structured question. All right. So it pays to go through all the questions in SPM. All right. The specific questions in the SPM past years to get an idea of what questions can be asked. All right. So we'll also be discussing something on compost, which is a new topic. Okay, so it's worthwhile to go through these questions, and green building can still be asked again in the coming exam. All right, because some questions can be repeated, as we have seen. Okay, so this is the question 11. All right, so it tests your knowledge of Form 5, Chapter 10 on environmental sustainability. Let's go through it. Now, diagram 11.1 shows green technology concept practices practiced by a farmer. All right, so here we see the method of producing the compost. It's called the compost cycle, right? So fruits, vegetables, and organic waste, they are collected in special containers covered with layers of soil, and then it's watered. Okay, it needs water, and then mix the compost mixture and let the composting process take place. And they have to stir the compost, all right, once in a while to let the oxygen go into the mixture. And then the compost is ready to be used after some months. So it's used to plant the vegetables, and then we get the fruits of the labor, which is eaten, and then again all the skins and peels are used to produce compost again. So this is called the compost cycle, right? Now let's look at the question. Define green technology. Again, your definition must come from the textbook. Very important, because all the keywords that can help you to get the marks will be from the textbook definition. All right, so let's memorize this definition. Green technology refers to the development and application of products, equipment, or systems. At least if you mention products and equipment, should be good enough, right? So development and application of products, equipment, and systems to preserve the environment or nature, either one. Okay, preserve the environment while minimizing or reducing the negative impacts of human activities. So you can choose reducing, while reducing the impacts of human activities. Okay, so development and application of products, equipment, and systems to preserve the environment while at the same time reducing the negative impacts of human activities. So all these words in blue are the keywords. All right. Now, just some notes here. What is compost actually? So compost is actually the decaying organic matter or material that after some months of decay can be used as a fertilizer for plants. So at the beginning, it looks like all these eggshells and vegetable parts, bits, and also peels from the onion and so forth, right? Now, after some months, and with the help of worms and other organisms like bacteria that help to decompose the compost, after some months, we'll get a dark brown substance like soil, which is full of nutrients. Okay, so to make compost, 4 items are needed. Carbon-rich materials called the browns, like cardboard and all that. Nitrogen-rich materials are called the greens, like all the cut grass and dried leaves and so forth, right? And then we need water, so that's why it needs to be watered. and you need air also, because this process of breakdown is carried out by aerobic bacteria. All right, so that is the process to make compost here. And also we must know that compost is the decaying organic material used as fertilizers for plants. Next question, part 2, based on diagram 11.1, discuss the benefits of the practices practiced by the farmer. Okay, just now we refer to diagram 11.1 is the production of compost, right? So they're asking you the benefits of the production of compost. So the practice is the production of compost. Now you may not get marks for this, but it's just to clarify actually what the question is asking, right? So you have to mention 6 benefits of the compost. Sometimes there's 1 mark for this practice, the name of the practice, okay? But here is not, marks are not given for the name, the production of compost, or the process. So this is the process. Sometimes the marks are given, all right? So anyway, let's start with P1, the first point. What is the benefit of compost? It reduces landfill waste as the organic waste is recycled into compost, right? So reduce the landfill waste. Less waste will be thrown out from the house, okay? And less waste will be sent to the landfill. It decreases greenhouse gas emissions, such as methane emissions. So greenhouse gas emissions from the rotting substances is the methane. One of it is methane, which is a greenhouse gas that absorbs the heat, okay, and causes global warming. So how does it decrease this? Now, this is the extra explanation which you may not need to fill in. Composting with oxygen, where there's oxygen available, minimizes these emissions. Maybe there's still some methane produced through composting, but less, compared to decomposing organic matter in landfills, okay, which produces more methane. So this is just a side note for you to understand how development or production of compost reduces the greenhouse gases. Next, P3, it improves soil quality. Now, again, the answer does not state the reason why it improves soil quality, but here I've given to you in case you need to explain more about all these benefits. So improves the soil quality as compost is rich in nutrients, improves soil texture and water retention. All right, so it's all in brackets here. All right, the point that they want is improve soil quality. That's enough to get you 1 mark. Fourthly, usage of compost for plants lead to healthier and faster plant growth because the compost contains a lot of nutrients, all right, through the decomposition of the organic waste, produced through the decomposition of organic waste. Next, it decreases the use of chemical fertilizers because the compost itself is really rich in nutrients that can stimulate the growth of the plant. Now, P6, it increases crop yield and profits, okay, due to the faster plant growth and more yield will be produced. More fruits will be produced. It reduces air and water pollution caused by decomposting waste because you didn't send it to the landfill, send the kitchen waste to the landfill. So it reduces air and water pollution. All right. So P8, it reduces cost of waste management or reduces the landfill fees because sometimes the landfill is sort of maybe rented or okay, it may be the land may be rented so that it can be used to for the waste to be collected there and decomposed there, right? So it reduces the cost of waste management as some of the waste has been processed into compost. It reduces soil erosion on slopes because compost binds to soil particles and it can cause the growth of plants on the slopes so that there's less soil erosion. It supports biodiversity as the compost-rich soil is a favorable habitat for earthworms and other beneficial organisms. So all these in brackets are actually means that you don't really have to mention that, but I'm just giving to you so that you understand how it has all these benefits. Now next, so this is the last part. Diagram 11.2 shows the design of a modern house that emphasizes on efficient use of natural resources such as water, energy, and materials. Okay, modern house that emphasizes on the efficient use of natural resources. Actually, this is called the green building, a green building. Based on diagram 11.2, justify the characteristics found in this house design to meet the requirements of the Green Building Index. So Green Building Index is not mentioned directly in the textbook, right? But let's have a look. What is this Green Building Index? So Green Building Index, this is they have some notes, is Malaysia's rating system to evaluate the environmental design and performance of Malaysian buildings. All right, whether it can be called a green building or not. All right, so they have certain rating system based on 6 main criteria, such as does the building show energy efficiency or practice energy efficiency? So example is are there solar panels, okay, which produce renewable energy? It's called the solar energy, right? Secondly, the indoor environment quality. That means the quality of the indoors, such as the air quality, whether it is filled with these volatile organic chemicals which are harmful to health, whether it's natural light, whether the temperature is comfortable, suitable for humans to live inside, all right, not too hot, and others. Now, sustainable site planning and management. For example, planting trees outside so that the site, okay, has trees outside, and this helps to sustain the environment, right? And then materials and resources. The materials used to build the home must be environmentally friendly, okay, to build the building, environmentally friendly. And water efficiency, such as collecting rainwater to save on the tap water use, and so forth. And then any type of innovation that helps in sustenance of the environment. Okay, so let's see all the criteria. Now, actually, it's been labeled for you already, so it's easier. All these characteristics of the green building. You just need to justify the characteristics found in the house design. That means mention how it meets the requirements of the Green Building Index. What are the benefits or advantages of having these various characteristics? Okay, the benefits of having these characteristics. So let's start. Now, the first one is solar panel, as you can see here. So you must mention, from here, you must mention the labels. So you can say that the solar panels are used and it helps to convert sunlight into electrical energy, right, for the use of the home to power appliances or devices. So this is good because it is using the renewable energy or renewable source of energy, right? That is sunlight. And it reduces the burning of fossil fuels. So renewable energy, by the way, means the energy that can be renewed from time to time, meaning that it doesn't finish, just not like coal or fossil fuels, which after they burn, they will be depleted, the resources will be depleted. Okay, so solar energy cannot be depleted because it's every day the sun is shining, and every day the solar panel can absorb this form of energy and convert to electrical energy. Okay, so P3 benefit is to reduce the burning of fossil fuels like coal. Okay, coal has to be burned to produce the electricity for the use of the home, right? The coal is burned in the power stations and so forth. Now, glass walls. So mention the glass wall, the presence of glass walls. So you can mention glass walls allow more natural light, like sunlight, into the rooms. So it will reduce the use of electricity during the day. You see, some buildings are very dark. They don't have glass walls, and they have concrete walls. So this prevents light from shining in, and they have to switch on the electricity the whole day, right? Switch on the lights. So that is not a characteristic of the green building. Okay, so glass wall is very beneficial. Now, rainwater storage tank. So we talk about the presence of the rainwater storage tank. It helps to collect natural rainwater from the environment. First point. P7, used for watering plants and cleaning toilets. That's the use of it. So it reduces the use of tap water. It will save on water. Okay, so we need to save on water too. Now, air ventilators. Air ventilators mentioned here. What does an air ventilator do? It will pump out the hot air. Hot air exits through the air vents to the outside, and cooler fresh air will enter through the doors. right? Fresh air will enter through the doors. So air convection means the flow of air in the building will make the house cooler, since there is a flow of air due to the air ventilator, and this will save energy, and you need less air conditioning, less you don't need to switch on the aircon so often, right? Because the house is cool enough already. Okay, let's go on to other points. A5, the planting of trees increases the oxygen levels around the home. So this helps to improve the health of people. Okay, oxygen is used for cellular respiration. It also absorbs, the trees absorb the carbon dioxide. So this reduces the greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and reduces global warming. Now, P15, planting trees help to reduce the surrounding temperature because there's more shade, right? So the house will be cooler. Now, A6, the presence of LED lights, as mentioned here. So this home uses LED lights. Now, what's the function of LED lights? It promotes the use of energy efficient equipment. Okay, it's more energy efficient compared to the normal type of lights, and it saves on electricity consumption. So it uses less electricity, and this will reduce the burning of fossil fuels in the power stations. Next, the last one is bright and soft color. So bright and soft house color. That means don't paint the house dark color like dark blue or black, right? Paint it in soft, bright colors like uh, beige color and so forth. So this color is a good heat reflector, the light colors, right? And it will make the house cooler. It won't absorb so much light from the sun's rays. Okay, so this is a new topic, on food security. Diagram 11.3 shows four important components of food security. Okay, food security involves availability of food for all people, access to food, okay, for everyone, food utilization, and food stability. Right? So based on the components in 11.3 here, suggest the role that can be played by canteen operators in your school to fulfill their responsibilities in achieving food security, okay, for the school children and the staff, right? So canteen operators. Now, how are canteen operators going to ensure availability of food? So canteen operators can provide high quality food in sufficient quantities. Okay, must have enough for everyone, not just sell out halfway during the lunch, okay, or during the uh, recess time. Okay, so high quality food in sufficient quantities for everybody. Then access to food. So they must ensure that the food can be obtained easily at all times during school hours in the canteen. All right, and they don't close shop after morning session, and that's all. Okay, and then nothing for afternoon session. So there must be easy access to the food, right? At all times. They must open the canteen till the after school hours they can close, right? Now, third point, they should prepare and sell nutritious food. This is about food utilization. All right, nutritious food, meaning food that contains carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, lipids. Okay, and then vegetables too for the vitamins and minerals. Okay, now P4, they should ensure good practices in food processing and carry out hygienic preparation of food. Okay, that's related to food utilization. Must be hygienic, all right, and safe for the students to eat and not cause diarrhea or any kind of stomach problems or food poisoning. Okay, as is heard and about in some schools, right? Food poisoning. So they should carry out hygienic preparation of food, clean and hygienic preparation of food. Now, next, also related to food utilization, they should prepare clean drinking water that can be drunk, all right? Boiled water if possible, or filtered water, boiled water for hot drinks and so forth. And P6, they should ensure that their food is affordable to students and staff and not highly priced, right? So it's also about availability of food, okay? And okay, that's all for this lesson. So I hope that you have learned something from it. Now, for this part here is 6 points and any 4 points will do, right? Okay, so thanks for viewing and all the best for your coming exams. All right, goodbye for now.